Okay, so one of the sayings of the Insight meditation movement is that if you want to go from A to B, be fully at A, fully inhabit the place you're at. And so in meditation, that's, this saying is for meditation. If you want to go from where you are now to any kind of deepening of the practice, liberating movements of the practice, there is a kind of directionality of this practice. It's onward leading. But the art of it is not so much to press ahead to get somewhere, but to more and more fully be here with what the experience is. And the primary thing that makes that difficult is, for many people, is the wandering mind, the mind wandering off. And so in focusing on breathing, breathing is meant to be a place to ground the attention, to center the attention. The breathing is always continuous in the present moment. And so to be along with the continuity of breathing means we're learning to really be here in the present moment and develop continuity with really being here. And some of that has to do with learning to relax enough to relax into the breath, to relax the thinking mind and relax the forces of distraction, and so we really hear. But also it involves a relaxed alertness and a kind of a turning on of a little heightened sense of alertness, so that we'll notice sooner, maybe right away, that the mind is beginning to wander off into thought, that we're getting lost into the world of thought and involved in it, as opposed to settling in more and more with the breathing. So as we do this sitting, you might see if both will do some relaxation, but relaxation can be overdone. Also, we want to kind of turn the light on in the mind, kind of a little bit relaxed, open awareness in the mind, alertness, that we're attentive to catch, there the mind's beginning to go. We're not being tense about it, we're not being forceful about it, but there is a kind of heightened alertness, maybe as a form of joy, delight, gratitude at the opportunity to be attentive, heightened awareness to notice the mind begins to wander. And at that point, as soon as you notice that, to not get involved, to let it all kind of drift away and settle in back into the breathing, back into the breathing. So taking an alert posture, a way of being in meditation that gives you some ability to stay alert. If you're sitting in a chair or in a cushion, sitting up a little bit taller, a little bit straighter than you normally would, just a little bit. And if you're lying down, then perhaps you want to keep your eyes open a little bit. Maybe there's a little more alertness there. Some people will raise their arm, the forearm pointing towards the ceiling, with the elbow resting on the bed or the floor, or both arms as a way of having a little bit more intentionality and alertness. So, gently closing your eyes, and begin by settling into your body, to be fully in A, here. It's good to see that it's really beginning with the body. So feeling the weight of your body against the surface that's holding it up, chair, floor, cushion. And relax and let go into that surface. Feel the support it provides. And then feel the rest of the torso especially if you're sitting upright, that's feeling the uprightness, the three-dimensionality, the substance of the torso. Perhaps moving the attention up the spine and feeling how the weight of the body maybe rests on each vertebrae. Maybe making small adjustments to the vertebrae, the spine, so that it really feels like the weight is centered on the vertebrae. You're not leaning too far forward or backwards, sideways. And as you exhale, to relax the muscles of the face, relaxing the muscles around the shoulder blades. Relaxing in the chest and around the heart. Relaxing the belly. It might also be possible to relax the thighs, the tops of the thighs, all the way down to your feet. And then bring together the body's experience of breathing with your awareness. Maybe like two hands coming together to bow, letting awareness come together with the body that's breathing. And center yourself on that experience of the body breathing. And in practicing continuity with the breathing, staying with the breath, it's not so much that you have to force yourself, not at all that you're to force yourself to stay with breathing. A lot of it is a relaxed returning, beginning again, allowing that coming together of breathing and awareness, reestablishing that contact. And as a form of relaxation in the mind, but also intentionality, see if you can bring a relaxed, heightened alertness, awareness. Which is both intimately aware of breathing, but that will notice if the mind begins to wander off. And if the mind begins wandering off, if you have any choice about it, don't go along with it. Let go, return to the breathing. It isn't so much that you're focusing on catching your thinking, as it is that you're awake in the mind with a broad enough awakefulness that you'll notice. When thinking begins. And if you want to get some support for staying with your breathing, you can very gently, very softly and quietly in the mind, you can count each exhale from 1 to 3. When you get to 3, start again at 1. And sometimes that very gentle giving a number, a count to the breathing, helps you stay alert to the mind that might wander off in thought. It's kind of like you're using the thinking mind to stay present, and therefore you'll notice if you wander off. And the counting, it just keeps you also closely connected to the breathing, involved in it. 1, 2, 3. I take a couple of little bit deeper breaths, longer exhales, just 2 of them maybe, to reestablish a stronger connection with your breathing. Remembering to stay awake enough to notice if you're wandering off in thought. And really, you have much better things to do right now than to wander off in thought. You can be here in A, really be present with your body, your awareness. Here, this place, the meeting place of awareness and breathing, like 2 hands meeting in reverence for the lived life in the present moment. One of the remarkable recognitions of that life has begun is when a newborn person or an animal takes its first breath. And one of the remarkable experience of someone dying is to witness them taking their last breath. And in between, we often take our breathing for granted. But breathing is central to life, to being alive. We need to breathe more than we need to drink or eat. That breathing is at the heart of what it means to be animated, to be alive. And it's possible to recognize that that's true for others. The miracle of them breathing. The preciousness of life, any life, person or animal that breathes, just like you are breathing, need to breathe. And to recognize the preciousness and value of all breathing life, all people. To recognize it through the understanding our own breathing and the value of our life. And may it be that as we get more and more centered in meditation, more deeply connected to ourselves, more centered on ourselves, more intimate, that it teaches us the tremendous value and preciousness of all beings, for all people. Just as we are precious deep inside, so are others. And may it be that coming out of meditation, that we live that way. May we have the intention to live respecting, revering, honoring the preciousness of life of all beings. And may we live this day where people feel our presence, our attention, our care is here to support and help improve the lives of other people, so that all beings may breathe freely, breathe with ease, breathe with happiness and kindness. May it be that what we learn in meditation is taken out into the world for the betterment and happiness of all beings everywhere. So today is the second talk on mindfulness of breathing. And one of the kind of goals of mindfulness meditation or many kinds of meditation involves one way or the other to really be centered in the present moment, to really be here in a continuous way. So awareness is really present for life, for experience. And the contrast to that are all the ways that we're not present, that we're not really here in some qualitatively heightened way to really feel and experience this life, to really notice what's happening in a deep way. And one of the probably most common ways that we avoid really being here is to wander off in discursive thoughts, to wander off into commentary, telling ourselves stories about the past, predictions about the future. And the mind kind of wanders off there. And it can feel sometimes very pleasant to do that, very enjoyable, or it can feel a drag or challenge or not pleasant to interrupt that. But it's a little bit like water. If water is flowing down a mighty river, and it can be quite beautiful to see the power of the river, the strength of the river, and knowing that it's going where it's supposed to go. But if someone comes along and dams that river, then the river stops. It's no longer a river. But then as the water builds up behind the dam, it starts spilling out across the countryside and spreads out across the plains and the lands and through the towns and cities and everything. And that water now is very free it has a certain kind of freedom in going over the banks of the river and flowing out across the plains. But in doing so, it's doing a lot of destruction. It's no longer a river. It's no longer what it is. But there's a feeling of freedom there for the mind to wander off into thought and do so freely. But in doing so, we've left the primary river of life, the river of our beingness in the present moment, that has a flow, has a vitality, or has a preciousness that can be lost if we allow the dam to interrupt and let everything overflow the sides and cause all kinds of problems, be caught in the floods. And to not have the floods go over into the countryside can feel like a loss of freedom if we identify the flooding with freedom. And there is a kind of, interruption of that if we release the dam. But that's what the river wants to do. It doesn't want to, it's blocked behind the dam. So this idea of continuity of attention in the present moment is kind of like opening up the dam so that our life can flow freely in the present moment, and we're really aware of it as it comes and goes, as experiences come and go. And now to stay in the present moment, we all have that capacity. But sometimes where it's most activated, where it's most utilized or occurs for people, is sometimes when they're afraid. Something that fears a really heightens present moment awareness sometimes. And a mountain climber who's climbing a cliff maybe have enough kind of concern that they're really going to stay present for it. Recently read a first-person account of a surgeon, a neurosurgeon, brain surgeon, spending hours doing really refined under a microscope surgery, and how crucial it is not to have the mind waver. And I can imagine there's a certain amount of fear there, that this really keeps your attention, your interest, because it's so important. Or playing tennis. Imagine playing championship game of tennis and wandering off and thinking about what happened in high school and your resentments about your high school partner or something, and the ball just goes right by you. But the interest in the game and the enjoyment of it keeps you right there in the present moment. Reading a good book maybe, or watching a really interesting movie, the mind doesn't waver. It really stays in the present moment because it's interesting and engaging and entertaining. When we start doing meditation practice, part of both the gift of it and the challenge of it is that sooner or later, it turns out it doesn't engage our fear, doesn't engage our desire for entertainment. It doesn't engage sometimes, it's not sometimes naturally interesting. And so because of all those things, what it requires of us is us to develop our natural capacity, to strengthen our natural capacity to provide that continuous awareness ourselves, rather than having something that is the prompt for it, the impetus for it. And so this continuity of breathing, of attention, comes from a variety of different functions of the mind. So one of them is relaxing. It's very hard to be in the present moment if we're not relaxed. And so, but certainly there can be a tense attention to the present moment that's continuous, but that's exhausting and it's counterproductive. We're looking for a soft, relaxed continuity of present moment attention that doesn't waver from the present moment, doesn't wander off a lot. And but that can come from relaxation. And some of that relaxation, why it works, is that it's the very tensions we have in our minds, our hearts, our body, that is often the fuel for the wandering mind. And so as the relaxation kicks in, that there's less and less impetus to wander off in thought. It also comes from present moment attention, continuity of it, comes from a real dedication to do so, to engage in intentional faculty, to really a sense of purpose. This is what I'm doing. That also can be overdone, but without some sense of purpose, the mind will drift off too easily. It has no anchor. It has no ballast to keep us present. There's also developing strength in mindfulness. Mindfulness is like a muscle. And the more we practice it, the more it gets stronger, and it's easier to stay present and present. It also comes to this heightened alertness where we notice where the mind begins wandering off. And it could be that people will feel, well, this heightened awareness is work. It's a little bit stressful to put the energy into being a little more alert, to notice when the mind wanders off. And that could be initially. But to get a habit of doing that, turning on the light in the mind and keeping it on to notice if the mind wanders off, in the long term actually lets the mind be much more at peace than if we freely allow the mind to wander off, flooding the plains all around us. And so the idea is one of the ways to develop this continuity of attention in the present moment is to stay with the breathing. And as we do it, we want to be alert enough, attentive enough to know what it feels like to really be with the breathing, so we know what it's like when we've lost touch. So that takes familiarity. It takes really registering what that experience is like to really stay present with the breathing. And also we want to notice what it's like, to heightened awareness, to notice what it's like when the mind begins to wander off. How when the mind wanders off, there's a loss of intimacy with ourselves. A certain kind of intimacy with the breathing, with our direct experience. And to be able to notice the mind wandering off, and then not jerk the mind back, not be upset with ourselves for wandering off, but lovingly kind of recognize, that's not what I'm doing now. I don't need to pick that up. That can be for later. Right now, we're staying here with the breathing. And then kind of, just don't wander off. Don't follow the floods. Come back here. Stay inside. Stay with yourself with the breathing. And as we develop more and more continuity with the breathing, it isn't so much that continuity with the breathing is the main point, but rather the main point is developing the mind's capacity to have continuous awareness of what's happening, to really be here, present, here for the experience of A, for the experience of now. And that kind of like opens up the floodgates of something deeper to flow, some deeper sense of aliveness, connection, some deeper sense of flow of the very nature of the changing nature of this life of ours, to really live in that river and find the freedom that's possible there. That can't be found. It's not really freedom to have the waters break over the banks of the river and flood the lands. And so to practice continuity, and as I think in the springtime I talked about one of the ways that images I've had for that I connect with the breathing is that of petting a cat. That we don't pet the cat 100% continuously, but it is intermittently continuously. We stroke the cat, we lift our hand up, bring it back to the front of the cat and stroke the cat again. And so, same thing with the breathing. Don't expect that it's absolutely continuous, but we are kind of coming back and stroking the breath, or being stroked by our breathing, being stroked by the inhales and exhales, and allowing ourselves to feel and experience that in an intimate and a close way until something inside begins to purr. So whenever we need to remember to come back, we just contentedly come back to the breathing. Mind wanders off, we contentedly come back and stroke the cat, stroke the breath, or be stroked by the breathing. And if the mind is really kind of strongly pulling itself into discursive thought, then one of the great ancient techniques is to spend a little time counting your breath. And you might want to keep it really simple and count 1 to 3. You can count 1, every exhale 1, then next one 2 and 3, and then start over again. Or some people will do 1 for the inhale and say 1 again for the exhale, 2 for the next inhale, 2 for the exhale, 3 for the inhale, 3 for the exhale. Just so that the thinking mind has something to do to rather than wandering off in thought. Or a more strictly vipassana technique that's closer to mindfulness than counting is to simply name or label, have a note, in as you're breathing in, out as you're breathing out. Or the rising as the belly or chest rises and falling as it falls. And that little note, or that counting, the idea is it keeps you on track, stays there. And you might notice when you stop saying the count or stop saying the note, that now you're beginning to wander off. So this is part of the nuts and bolts of meditation that we want to develop and strengthen and over time. And the way that's done is by practicing it and practicing it and practicing it. With a lot of generosity to yourself, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of non-striving, just starting over and over again and really kind of developing the capacities we have. We have tremendous capacities for practice that will naturally grow if we just keep doing it and doing it. So, mindfulness of breathing. Letting mindfulness of breathing support the development of continuous attention, to be really here in your experience. So thank you.